As Mano said, I'm from BIOPOLIS CIBIO, a research center in Portugal, and I'm going to present a work that we did with, together with REN, the transmission operator in Portugal. So, as you may know, white storks use pylons for nesting. This is a common behavior in many countries, but in Portugal is very significant. More than 20% of the national breeding population use pylons for breeding. And because pylons, at least REN's pylons, are so big, there is almost no risk of electrocution for the birds, but there are risk of electrical faults. And this is because materials from the nest can fall into the conductors and in the isolators, in the conductors, or there are droppings from the birds that can contaminate the insulators. So to address these risks of electrical faults, since the 90s, REN is implementing a nest management program that it includes to do helicopter flights to identify the pylons with nests in risky places, which is usually on the cross-arm, right above the conductors and the isolators. And then what they do is they remove or translocate those nests in dangerous locations. And above the cross-arm, they install anti-perching devices. Usually they install these what we call anemometers, because they are devices that spin with the wind. And then they also provide in the pylon, in safe locations of the pylon, alternative nesting platforms for the species. So what we tried to do in this study was to try to evaluate the spatial and temporal patterns of bird-caused electrical faults in the grid, in the Portuguese grid, and also try to evaluate if overall this management program of the nests that the TSO was doing was effective in reducing the electrical faults caused by birds. So to do this, we had access to an 18-year data set. This was really important, a large data set with information on transmission electrical faults, also information about the location of white stork nests on the transmission pylons, and information about the measures that the company has been implementing over the years, namely the number of anti-perching devices and alternative platforms that they have been installing. So, about the spatial patterns, what we see here is more or less where are the main, are located the main hotspots of electrical faults caused by birds, and we see that, maybe you don't know, but this is more or less the distribution of storks in Portugal, the main concentrations. So we see here some sort of overlap between the distribution of white storks and the distribution of bird-related electrical faults. And what we could find is that indeed the faults caused by birds are related with the number or the percentage of pylons that are colonized with stork nests, and also by the total number of nests in a circuit in the line. In terms of the temporal patterns, we are expecting, of course, electrical faults mostly in the breeding season, because this is when the birds are more active in the nests. But we were a little bit surprised that we could find, we also have seen some electrical faults in autumn, in October and November, which suggests that the species may be using the pylons also for roosting, not only during the breeding season. In terms of the periods of the day, this is a pattern more or less known. The electrical faults occur mostly during the night when the birds are in the nest, but there is a peak in the early hours of the day when the birds start their daily activities and fly away from the nest, and that there is some droppings there. So, about the overall effectiveness of the program, of the nest management program, this was one of our main questions. We see here that the number of nests over the years, over this 20 years, we've seen an increase, a huge increase in the number of nests in the pylons, and also the number of anti-perching devices and nesting platforms installed by the company. But despite of that, the number of electrical faults has considerably decreased. And there was a threefold increase in the number of nests in the pylons, in the grid, but at the same time there was a 95%, almost 96% reduction in electrical faults caused by birds. So this means that indeed the program implemented by REN is effective reducing electrical faults at the same time that it allows the species to continue to use the pylons for breeding. So this is a good result, a good conclusion, but this raised another question, which was, what was the contribution for this overall effectiveness of anemometers, the spinning devices? So what we did is a small experiment where we went to the pylons and select platforms with nests in similar situations. And before the breeding season, we removed the nest, and in one of the platforms we installed an anemometer, and the other one was left without an anemometer. And we did this in 43 nests, in a total of 36 pylons, and we monitored the reconstruction of the nests at least for 2 breeding seasons. And what we found is that storks quickly adapt and start reconstructing the nests in the pylons. But we've seen a significant difference between the control and the experimental, which means that indeed the anemometers can reduce the likelihood of the nest being rebuilt by the storks. The reduction was around 40%, but this was not the most interesting result indeed. What we found is that the effectiveness of the anemometer changes depending on the place where the anemometer is installed. And here we have three different situations, and the two on the left are situations where there was some support next to the anemometer so that the stork could start building the nest. So in those cases, they could more easily start reconstructing the nest. So because we could not do the experiment for technical reasons, we cannot do in the cross-arm the experiment, but the situation in the middle is the more similar to that situation, the situation where anemometers are typically installed. We should have this reduction, 47 reduction, as the effectiveness for anemometers in general for cross-arms. So some take-home messages. So first I would like to, like Ricardo also pointed out before, to highlight some of these advantages between the Academy and the TSO and DSO partnerships. One of the many advantages is, of course, to have access of large data sets that could not be used or were not being properly used, and also to do applied research to solve the problems of the company, and also to be able to transfer that knowledge immediately to the activity to the company, and also to make it available for others that can make the most of it. We found also with these studies that the program nest management program that REN implements is highly effective in reducing the bird-related electrical faults. At the same time, it allows storks to continue nesting on pylons. And we also know now what is, for this overall effectiveness, we know now what is the contribution of anemometers, but there is still some room for improvement. And if we would like to improve the effectiveness of anemometers, We know that in the cross-arm, we should reduce the space between the anemometers because that is critical factor that explains if the nest is rebuilt or not by the stork. And of course, this also gives us, there is still opportunity for further research in terms of testing and other anti-perching devices, particularly because this study was made in the breeding season, and we've seen that there are some information that the storks may use the pylons also in other periods of the year, so, and also during the night, so it will be important to also to expand the studies to those periods. So thank you so much.